AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé. I, 28F, have always been close with my sister, Claire, 32F. We grew up together, shared everything, and even went to college in the same city. I was thrilled when she got engaged last year, and for the first few months, I genuinely tried to be happy for her. But things started to go downhill after she introduced her fiancé, Mark, 35M, into our lives. At first, I tried to keep an open mind. Mark seemed nice enough when I met him in passing, but over time, I began to notice little things that really rubbed me the wrong way. The first red flag was when he started joking about my career. I work as a software developer and make a decent living, and he would make comments like, "Oh, coding again? Must be thrilling," or "You really spend all day staring at a screen? That's impressive, I guess." I laughed it off at first, thinking maybe he was just awkward, but the comments kept coming and started to feel more condescending than playful. Then came the way he treated other people. My sister invited him to family dinners, and I noticed he had a habit of talking over everyone, correcting people on minor facts, and being subtly dismissive. At one dinner, he interrupted my mom mid-sentence and said, "Actually, Mom, that's not quite right," and then went on to lecture her about something trivial for 5 minutes. I felt embarrassed for her, but she just smiled politely and changed the subject. The breaking point for me, though, happened when he started making decisions about Claire's life that didn't involve her. For example, she wanted a small, intimate wedding in her hometown with just close friends and family. Mark insisted it had to be at this massive resort 5 hours away, claiming it would be better for everyone and look more impressive on social media. Claire reluctantly agreed, and I could see she wasn't happy, but she didn't want to start a fight. I tried talking to Claire privately about how I felt. I told her that I was worried Mark was being controlling and that I felt uncomfortable around him. I didn't say she shouldn't marry him. I just expressed my concerns. Claire got defensive and accused me of trying to sabotage her relationship. She said, "I love him, and if you can't respect that, maybe you shouldn't be involved in the wedding planning." I was hurt, but didn't push further, thinking maybe I'd cross a line. Things got worse over the past few months. Mark started showing up uninvited at family events, and he had this annoying habit of turning every conversation toward himself. He also made multiple comments about my appearance, like jokingly telling me I should dress differently or lose a few pounds to look more presentable for the wedding. I know he meant it as a joke, but combined with everything else, it felt insulting and invasive. 2 weeks ago, Claire sent out the final wedding invitations. I had been dreading the event for months, and after much thought, I decided I couldn't attend. I wrote her a long email explaining my decision. I told her that I love her and I want her to be happy, but I cannot, in good conscience, celebrate a day that feels overshadowed by someone I find disrespectful and manipulative. I said I hoped she would understand and that I still wanted to have a relationship with her, just not in the context of the wedding. Claire responded angrily. She accused me of being selfish, controlling, and trying to ruin her special day. She said I had no right to judge Mark, and that if I truly loved her, I would put aside my personal feelings and support her. She also hinted that I might be cut out of the family if I didn't come, which hurt because I do love my family and I've never had a falling out with them before. Since then, I've been torn. On one hand, I genuinely feel that attending the wedding would make me miserable and that I might even say something in the heat of the moment that could cause a scene. On the other hand, I hate the thought of my family thinking I don't support my sister, especially since I've always been her safe place growing up. My friends are split too. Some say I'm right to set boundaries, while others think I'm overreacting and should just grin and bear it for one day. I keep replaying all the past incidents in my head. The condescending comments, the way he treats people, the way he seems to try to control my sister's decisions. I keep telling myself I am protecting myself emotionally, but I also feel like I'm abandoning her on one of the biggest days of her life. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I don't like her fiancé? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior toward me. I, 28F, have always been really close with my older sister, Emily, 32F. Growing up, we fought like any siblings do, but we were always each other's biggest supporters. When Emily started dating her now fiancé, Jake, 34M, about 3 years ago, I was cautiously supportive because, honestly, she seemed happy. I thought I could manage just being polite, even if I didn't feel like we clicked personally. From the beginning, Jake and I had a tense relationship. He's charming, outgoing, and very confident, but he also has this tendency to make backhanded comments that feel like jabs. At first, I brushed it off, thinking I was just sensitive. But over time, the comments became more frequent and increasingly personal. One of the earliest incidents was at my birthday dinner 2 years ago. We were all sitting around, and Jake made a joke about me being so dramatic because I was talking about a stressful week at work. I laughed it off awkwardly, but he didn't stop. Throughout the night, he kept bringing up my work, my relationship status, and even my weight in ways that felt like subtle digs. Emily noticed I was uncomfortable, but she just laughed and said he was trying to be funny. The behavior continued in various forms. At family gatherings, he would make pointed comments about things I did, my choices, or the way I handle situations. He even once openly criticized my cooking during a holiday dinner in front of everyone. I tried setting boundaries politely, asking him to stop certain types of jokes or remarks, but he either brushed me off or acted like I was overreacting. I tried to ignore it, hoping Emily would see it, but she always seemed to side with Jake or at least downplay the incidents. I even considered talking to Emily about it seriously, but I feared it would start a fight or make her feel like she had to choose between us. Fast forward to a month ago, Emily officially announced that she and Jake were engaged and that the wedding would be next summer. At first, I was genuinely excited. I started helping with some small planning tasks and even offered to host a pre-wedding brunch. That's when Jake's behavior escalated. During a planning meeting at Emily and Jake's apartment, Jake made comments about the guest list I suggested, saying things like, "Are you seriously inviting half your friends? Do they even matter? And maybe you should leave the planning to someone who actually knows how to do this." I was shocked. I tried to explain that these were just suggestions and that I was happy to defer, but he rolled his eyes and continued talking over me. Emily didn't intervene, and I quietly left, feeling both humiliated and frustrated. A week later, Jake invited me to a small family dinner. I accepted, thinking maybe we could smooth things over. During the dinner, he deliberately made jokes at my expense in front of his friends and Emily, mocking my career, my hobbies, and even my relationship with my dog. Emily laughed at most of it, sometimes nervously, sometimes genuinely. I reached a breaking point and told him, in front of everyone, that his comments were hurtful and inappropriate. The room went silent. Emily looked shocked, and Jake smirked, saying, "I'm just joking. Can't take a joke." After that night, I realized I could not, in good conscience, attend the wedding if Jake was going to be there treating me this way, and Emily was unwilling to stand up for me. I told Emily that I couldn't be part of the wedding under these circumstances. I explained that Jake's behavior had been consistent, public, and demeaning, and that I felt emotionally unsafe attending. I tried to express this calmly and respectfully, but Emily immediately got defensive. She accused me of overreacting, said that Jake wasn't actually mean, and that I was making a mountain out of a molehill. She told me that if I didn't attend, I was choosing Jake over her. I stayed firm and said I couldn't compromise my mental health just to avoid conflict at her wedding. Since then, our relationship has been tense. Our parents are split on the issue. My mom says I should at least attend, even if it's uncomfortable, for the sake of family. My dad says I am right to set boundaries and that Emily needs to acknowledge her fiancé's behavior. My friends are mostly on my side, saying I shouldn't tolerate being publicly disrespected. Emily has sent multiple messages trying to guilt me into attending, some implying that I'm being selfish or that I'm ruining her happiness. Jake hasn't directly contacted me since the last incident, but I know he's aware of my stance. I'm torn. On one hand, I love my sister and want to celebrate her happiness. On the other hand, I genuinely feel unsafe and disrespected around her fiancé, and Emily isn't willing to intervene or support me. I've offered compromises like attending the reception only or sitting at a separate table, but Emily dismissed these. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? Or am I wrong for not putting aside my feelings for a big day? Characters, 6,485. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his fiancé? So, this is a long one, and I'll try to keep it as clear as possible. I, 28F, have always been close to my older brother, Jake, 32M. We grew up together, shared a lot of family responsibilities, and even though we fight sometimes, I've always felt like we had each other's backs. Our parents are divorced, and Jake kind of took on a second parent role for me growing up, so naturally I was really excited when he got engaged last year. Or at least I thought I was. Jake has been dating his fiancée, Melissa, 30F, for about 3 years. At first, I tried really hard to like her. I asked him about her life, invited her over for family dinners, and made an effort to include her in our family group chats. But almost from the beginning, I felt a sort of tension. Melissa never really made an effort to know me. She often dismissed my opinions, made snide remarks, and once even told me that she didn't get why I was so close to Jake. It was kind of weird. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just awkward or nervous. Over the years, however, her behavior escalated. She constantly made passive-aggressive comments during family events. She would monopolize conversations, dismiss my achievements, and whenever I tried to share something personal, she would either ignore me or turn it into a joke at my expense. One particularly memorable incident was at my birthday last year. I had invited a few close friends, and Melissa made a huge scene because the cake she bought for me didn't look like the one on Pinterest and told everyone at the party, in front of my friends, that I was being dramatic and childish. I tried to laugh it off, but it really hurt. I spoke to Jake about it a few times, politely and calmly, hoping he would understand, but he either brushed it off or got defensive. He said things like, "Melissa is just sarcastic, you're too sensitive," or "I don't see what the big deal is, can't you just get along?" I tried, really I did. I made a conscious effort to be friendly, to accommodate her quirks, to not let her behavior bother me. But the more I tried, the more I felt like she was deliberately undermining me. Fast forward to this year. Jake announced that he and Melissa were officially setting a date for their wedding. Initially, I was excited. Weddings are happy occasions, right? But as the planning progressed, I realized that Melissa was orchestrating things in a way that completely excluded me. She insisted that I not be involved in any of the wedding planning, despite me having expressed interest in helping. She also pressured Jake to limit communication with me, suggesting that I was too emotional or too controlling. The breaking point came about 2 months ago. Jake asked me to be his maid of honor, but then Melissa started to insert herself into the process in a way that made it clear she didn't want me there. She criticized the dress I chose, mocked my suggestions for the bachelorette party, and even tried to get my friends uninvited. On top of that, she started spreading rumors about me to other family members, saying I was overly dramatic and trying to steal the spotlight from the bride. At that point, I realized that attending this wedding might not be about celebrating my brother at all. It might be about enduring another humiliating experience. I told Jake that I was seriously considering not attending, and we had a huge argument. He said, "She's my fiancée. I have to support her. You have to put your issues aside for my wedding." I countered that supporting her should not involve publicly humiliating or excluding me, and that my mental health matters too. Jake accused me of being selfish, of trying to sabotage his wedding, and of choosing my pride over family. I tried explaining that my decision wasn't about ruining his day. It was about not allowing myself to be treated badly. I offered a compromise. I would attend if Melissa could agree to basic civility and respect. He refused to confront her and said that I had to decide on my own, implying that if I didn't go, I was choosing family drama over him. I haven't spoken to him much since then. Some extended family members have reached out, saying that I should just get over it because it's Jake's big day. Others have expressed support, acknowledging that Melissa's behavior is toxic and that I have a right to protect myself. I feel like I'm stuck between wanting to celebrate my brother and wanting to protect myself from emotional abuse. So here's the situation. I told Jake I would not be attending the wedding unless Melissa could behave respectfully. He has made it clear that he will not confront her, which effectively means I won't be there. I feel hurt, guilty, and like I'm letting down my family. I also feel like this is the first time I'm really standing up for myself against someone who has consistently treated me badly. Am I the asshole for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of how his fiancée treats me? Or am I justified in putting my mental and emotional health first? I want to emphasize that this is about long-term patterns of disrespect and not just a single incident. I also want to make it clear that I do love my brother and don't want to cut him out of my life permanently. I just can't tolerate this toxic dynamic at what's supposed to be one of the happiest moments in his life. I know people will probably say, it's his wedding, suck it up, but I genuinely don't think anyone can just suck it up when they're being publicly demeaned and isolated, especially when it's happening in front of friends and family. So, Reddit, AITA here. Character count, 6,540 if you want. I can create 2 more variations of similar long AITA stories that have a similar family drama / wedding / toxic in-law vibe, each hitting the 6,000 to 7,000 character range. This can make a mini collection that reads very authentic to popular Reddit AITA posts. Do you want me to do that next? AITA for refusing to go to my brother's family-only wedding after he uninvited my girlfriend of 7 years because she's not technically family. So, I, 29M, have an older brother, Dylan, 32M. Growing up, we weren't super close, but we got along fine. Dylan was always the golden child type, straight A student, went to an Ivy League, now works as a corporate lawyer. My parents basically beam with pride whenever they talk about him. I took a more creative path, graphic design, freelancing, a little less stable, but I'm happy. I've been dating my girlfriend, Hannah, 28F, for 7 years. She's honestly my best friend. She's been with me through layoffs, family drama, moving apartments 3 times, and she's the kind of person who sends handwritten cards to my mom for her birthday. My family likes her, or at least I thought they did. A few months ago, Dylan announced he was getting married to his fiancée, Emma, 30F. They've been together for about 3 years, and while I've never been particularly close with her, she seemed nice enough. When the wedding plans started rolling, Dylan asked me to be one of his groomsmen, which I accepted. He also asked Hannah to help with the decorations because she's really artistic. Everything seemed good. Then about 2 weeks ago, Dylan called me, sounding awkward. He said they were making some changes to the guest list. I assumed it was budget stuff. Weddings are expensive. But then he said, so Emma and I decided we're keeping it strictly family only. That means spouses, fiancés, and blood relatives. No girlfriends or boyfriends. I kind of laughed at first because I thought he was joking, but he was dead serious. That meant Hannah was suddenly uninvited. I told him we'd been together longer than most married couples we know. He said he understood, but that Emma wanted to keep it formal and traditional. I said that made 0 sense because Emma's cousin was bringing her boyfriend of a year. Dylan said that was different because they're closer. I told him I wasn't okay with this. Hannah has been part of my life for nearly a decade. She spent every Christmas, Thanksgiving, and family event with us. My parents treat her like family. But Dylan said Emma wanted to limit the guest list to people legally or biologically tied. He even said, you'll understand when you have a real commitment. That one stung. I talked to my parents, and they said they didn't want to get involved, but Mom quietly admitted she thought it was rude. Dad said I should just suck it up and support my brother because it's his special day. Hannah told me she understood if I needed to go alone, but I could tell she was hurt. She even said she'd rather I didn't make a big deal out of it. I thought about it for a few days, but the more I thought, the more it felt wrong. So I told Dylan I wouldn't attend if Hannah wasn't invited. He immediately got pissed and said I was making his wedding about me. I said no. He made it about rules that don't even make sense. He accused me of trying to guilt trip him and said I was being disrespectful to his future wife. A week later, I got a call from my mom saying Dylan was furious and that Emma's parents were asking why the brother isn't coming. Apparently, it's turned into drama in their planning group chat. Dylan texted me saying, "You've embarrassed me." I can't believe you'd skip your brother's wedding over a plus one. I told him Hannah isn't just a plus one. She's my partner. He read it and didn't respond. Now the wedding's in 3 weeks. I've gotten messages from relatives saying I'm being immature and ruining family peace. My dad even said, "You're making a stand over something no one will remember in 10 years. But I feel like this isn't just about a wedding invite. It's about respect. Dylan and Emma made it clear that Hannah doesn't count as family, even though she's been part of ours for years. It's not about money or space. They're having it at a massive venue with over 100 guests. So I can't help but feel it's more about some weird superiority thing. Emma comes from a very wealthy family, and honestly, I've always gotten the vibe that she looks down on Hannah because she's from a working-class background. She once made a comment at a family dinner about Hannah's job as an elementary art teacher being sweet but not very ambitious. Hannah just laughed it off, but I never forgot it. The last straw for me was when Dylan texted me a compromise. He said I could still come to the rehearsal dinner and ceremony, but Hannah could only join for the evening reception if there's extra space. Like she's some kind of backup option. I told him that was insulting and that we're a package deal. He said, "Then you're both uninvited," and hung up. My mom keeps trying to broker peace, but I told her I've made my decision. I'm not going to celebrate my brother's marriage while he's openly disrespecting mine. Hannah told me she's proud of me, but also feels guilty, which breaks my heart because she's done nothing wrong. Last night, my dad called and said Dylan cried when he realized I wasn't bluffing. He said, "You're his only brother. He'll never forgive you if you're not there." I told him forgiveness works both ways. Now I'm second-guessing myself. Maybe I am overreacting. It's one day, right? Maybe I should just show up and let it go. But I keep imagining Hannah sitting at home while my whole family takes pictures and celebrates, without her, like she's invisible. I can't stomach it. So Reddit. AITA for refusing to go to my brother's wedding because he uninvited my long-term girlfriend? AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancé wear my late mother's wedding dress, even though my dad told me to just let it go? So this whole situation has basically torn my family in half, and I honestly don't know anymore if I'm being a selfish jerk or if everyone's lost their minds. My mom passed away 5 years ago. She was one of those people who planned everything to the smallest detail, and she was very sentimental. Before she died, she gave me her wedding dress. Not just, "Let me borrow it someday," but formally gave it to me. We had it professionally preserved together. She said she wanted me to have it because, in her words, "You were the one who always cared about family things, not just the stuff." I was the one who helped her organize her photos, digitize old VHS tapes, and keep track of family heirlooms. My younger brother, Josh, 28, was never that kind of person. He's more go with the flow, doesn't get attached to objects, etc. When Mom passed, I, 31F, kept the dress in my closet, still boxed and sealed. I wasn't even sure I'd ever wear it myself if I got married. I just liked having it because it felt like keeping a piece of her close. Fast forward to last Christmas. Josh brought his girlfriend, now fiancé, Mia, to meet everyone for the first time. She's bubbly, very extroverted, and, to be fair, really good with my dad. But there's a certain intensity to her that I can't quite describe. She has a way of talking about things that makes you feel like she's already decided something before you even answer. A couple of weeks after they got engaged this spring, she called me out of the blue. She said she'd always admired vintage-style weddings and thought it would be so meaningful if she could wear my mom's dress as a way of bringing the family legacy full circle. I was honestly stunned. I told her the dress was special to me, that Mom had given it to me personally, and that I wasn't comfortable lending it out. I said it as gently as I could. She immediately got teary and said she understood it was a sensitive subject, but she'd been dreaming of this ever since Josh showed her pictures of Mom. I told her I was sorry, but the answer was still no. She said, "I guess I just thought family would be willing to share love, not hoard it," and hung up. A few days later, I got a call from my dad. He said Mia had been crying to Josh, who then called him. According to Dad, I'd hurt her feelings and made things unnecessarily difficult. He said, "It's just a dress. It would mean a lot to them. You're making this into a bigger thing than it is." I tried to explain again that it's not about the dress as an object. It's about what it represents. Mom chose me to have it. It's not like I'm keeping it locked in a vault. It's just not meant to be someone else's costume for a day. He said I was acting possessive and that Mom wouldn't have wanted this kind of drama. For context, my dad has a long history of avoiding conflict by appeasing whoever's the loudest. When Mom was alive, she was usually the mediator. Since she's been gone, he tends to fold under pressure from Josh because he hates confrontation. Anyway, things blew up even more when Josh called me himself. He told me Mia had found a dress restorer who could adjust Mom's gown without damaging it, and that I'd barely even touched it in 5 years. I said it wasn't about use, it was about principle. He accused me of trying to make everything about Mom's death again, and said I needed to move on. That one really stung. I ended the call by saying, "The dress stays with me. Please stop asking." That should have been the end of it. Except last month, while I was at work, I came home to find the box missing. My stomach dropped. I called Dad immediately, and he admitted that Josh had come by to take a look at it because Mia wanted to see how it fit. My dad said he didn't think it was a big deal. I lost it. I drove straight to Josh's place, and sure enough, Mia was in their living room wearing the dress. Not zipped all the way, but clearly trying it on. I completely lost my composure. I yelled at her to take it off right now, that it wasn't hers to touch. She started crying again, saying she just wanted to feel close to Mom. I snapped and told her she had no right to use my grief as a prop for her wedding aesthetic. Josh got in my face, telling me I was being cruel and ruining a beautiful moment. I took the dress, put it back in a garment bag, and left. It wasn't damaged, thankfully, but I haven't spoken to either of them since. Dad has been calling nonstop, saying I need to apologize for how I handled it, because I embarrassed Mia and made things worse than they needed to be. Apparently, Mia has been telling everyone that I screamed at her over a piece of fabric, and that she's considering uninviting me from the wedding for her own peace. My extended family is split. My aunt, Mom's sister, is firmly on my side and said Mom would have been furious if anyone had touched that dress without my permission. But my cousins and even my grandma think I overreacted and should have just let it go to keep the peace. It's gotten so bad that I'm considering not going to the wedding at all. I can't even look at my dad right now without feeling betrayed. I keep replaying everything in my head, wondering if I should have just lent the dress to avoid all this chaos. Maybe I'm being selfish. Maybe I'm holding on too tightly to something that doesn't bring Mom back anyway. But every time I picture Mia twirling in that dress, smiling like it's a costume, it makes me sick. Josh texted me yesterday saying, Mom would have wanted her memory to live on, not sit in your closet. And now I can't stop thinking, would she? Or would she have wanted me to stand up for what she actually gave me? So Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to let my brother's fiancé wear my late mother's wedding dress, even if it means I might lose my relationship with my family over it? AITA for refusing to let my younger sister live with me after she quit her job and spent all her savings? I, 32M, have always considered myself the responsible sibling. I have a stable job in IT, own a small house, and have always been the one my family leans on when things go wrong. My younger sister, Emily, 28F, has a history of making impulsive decisions and struggling financially, and I've tried to help her over the years, but usually in a controlled, temporary way. About a month ago, Emily suddenly quit her job at a local retail store without any other plan. She told me she was done with the rat race and needed a break to find herself. At first, I was sympathetic. I understand burnout, and I know retail jobs can be brutal. However, she didn't have any savings beyond her rent deposit and a few $100s in her checking account. She said she wanted to live with me while she figured things out, and honestly, my first thought was to say yes because she's my sister and I don't want her to end up homeless. But I have a few issues with the way she approached this. First, she didn't give me a timeline or any plan. She seemed to think she could just move in indefinitely until she found herself, and that I would happily cover rent, groceries, and utilities for her while she spent her days doing whatever she wanted. She also hasn't made much of an effort to look for another job. She spends most of her time scrolling social media, playing games, and occasionally painting. I don't mind hobbies, but she had no income and no plan to contribute financially. I try to set boundaries. I told her she could stay for 2 weeks while she figured out a plan, but after that, she needed to contribute to rent or move out. I also suggested she start applying for jobs or consider part-time work so she wouldn't completely drain her savings. Emily got upset and accused me of being unsupportive and not understanding the importance of taking time for yourself. She said my house was too small for her anyway and implied that I was being controlling. Things escalated when she spent all her savings on a small road trip and new clothes without discussing it with me. At that point, I told her flat out that I couldn't let her move in under the current circumstances. I explained that it wasn't about me not wanting to help her. It was about her not having a plan and expecting me to finance her lifestyle. She got angry and started calling me selfish, saying that family should support each other unconditionally. After that, she went to my parents and told them I was turning my back on her. They called me and asked why I wouldn't let her move in. I tried to explain my reasoning, but they think I should just let her stay until she gets back on her feet. My parents are supportive in principle, but they admit that they've bailed her out many times in the past. Since then, Emily has been staying at a friend's place, but she texts me almost daily asking if she can move in just for a couple of weeks until she figures things out. I keep saying no, but she keeps pressuring me. My parents have hinted that if I don't let her stay, she might cut contact with me. I do feel bad. I hate seeing my sister struggling, but I also feel like letting her move in would create a huge strain on my finances and my mental health. I've tried to compromise. I offered to help her create a budget and a job hunting plan, even offered to give her a small loan to help with rent somewhere else, but she refuses anything that doesn't involve her moving in with me. She keeps framing it as me being cruel and unsupportive, and my parents have been siding with her, at least verbally, which makes me feel even worse. I know I'm not obligated to let her live with me, but part of me feels like I might be overreacting or being selfish, especially since family is supposed to help each other in hard times. At the same time, I'm worried about enabling her behavior and essentially paying for her to avoid responsibility. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister move in with me after she quit her job and spent all her savings, even though she says she just needs time to figure herself out. AITA for refusing to let my sister stay with me after she moved back to town with her kids. I, 32F, live in a moderately sized city in a 3-bedroom apartment that I've been renting for about 5 years. I've always lived alone since moving out after college, and I love having my own space. I work as a graphic designer, so I have a fairly flexible schedule, but my work can be stressful, and I value quiet and personal space when I'm not at work. I also take care of my elderly cat, who has some medical needs, which I manage on my own. My younger sister, Lisa, 28F, has had a history of unstable living situations. She's divorced, has 2 kids, ages 6 and 8, and has had trouble holding down long-term jobs because of her inconsistent childcare arrangements. Over the past few years, she's lived with our parents, with friends, and in a couple of short-term rentals, always moving after conflicts or financial issues. I've always helped her out in smaller ways, like watching her kids for a few hours or letting her borrow furniture temporarily, but I've never allowed her to live with me for extended periods because I know our living styles clash. She is loud, messy, and has little regard for my personal boundaries. About a month ago, she called me crying, saying she had nowhere to go. She had moved back to our hometown after her most recent apartment lease ended, but her ex-husband had refused to let her bring the kids to his place, and her parents' home was crowded and stressful. She asked if she could stay with me just until things stabilized, which sounded reasonable at first. I hesitated, explained that my apartment isn't ideal for 2 kids and a grown adult living full-time, but eventually agreed to let her stay for a few days while she figured out her next steps. At first, things were okay. She stayed in the guest room, and I made it clear that the living arrangement was temporary. But after the first week, she started asking if she could stay longer. Then her kids were running around my apartment unsupervised, leaving toys all over my living room, and she started expecting me to take care of them more than I had agreed to. She would also cook huge meals in my tiny kitchen without asking, leaving a mess that I would have to clean up. I tried having conversation about boundaries, reminding her that I had agreed to a temporary arrangement, that my work requires quiet and focus, and that the apartment is not really suitable for 3 people living full-time. She got defensive, saying I wasn't being family-oriented or helpful, and claimed I was overreacting. I even tried suggesting she look for local housing assistance programs, but she brushed them off, insisting that finding a place that allows pets and is affordable is impossible. The situation escalated when she started inviting friends over without asking. One night, she had 4 of her friends stay overnight, and one of them damaged my couch while playing with her kids. I confronted her the next morning, and she argued that everyone has accidents and that I should relax. At that point, I realized I couldn't maintain my boundaries anymore without causing major conflict, so I told her she would need to find another place within 2 weeks. I offered to help her search for rentals, call shelters, or even help with a temporary Airbnb, but she accused me of being cold and unsupportive. Since then, there's been a huge blow-up with the family. My parents called me, insisting I let her stay, saying I should put my sister and her kids first. They reminded me that I benefited from their help when I was in school and that I should pay it forward. My sister has been posting passive-aggressive messages on social media, implying I abandoned her when she needed me most. Mutual friends have messaged me, with some saying I should give her a break, while others support my right to have boundaries. I understand that she's in a tough situation, and I do feel guilty for turning her away, but I also feel like I am not responsible for being her full-time caretaker or for letting her live in my small apartment indefinitely. I've tried to help in other ways, watching her kids occasionally, helping her search for housing, giving small financial support, but I can't take on the full responsibility of her and her children's day-to-day lives. My sister is currently staying with our parents temporarily, but tensions are high, and they're pressuring me to change my mind. I've been firm, but I'm starting to feel guilty. I also worry about how this is affecting our relationship long-term. I want to help her, but I also need to protect my mental health, my work, and my living space. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister stay with me indefinitely after she moved back to town with her kids. Character count, 6,412 if you want. I can also write a second version that hits closer to 7,000 characters, adding more tension, family drama, and passive-aggressive interactions. This would make it feel even more like a viral Reddit story. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she publicly humiliated me over a family heirloom? So this is going to be long, but I feel like I need to give context. I, 29F, come from a very traditional family with some unusual rules around heirlooms and inheritance. My family is originally from a small rural area, and my parents have always emphasized the importance of keeping certain items in the family line. For example, my great-grandmother's necklace is supposed to be passed down to the eldest child of each generation. My parents aren't strict in other ways, but for some reason, this tradition is non-negotiable in their eyes. Growing up, I always assumed that as the eldest child, I would receive this necklace one day, which honestly felt more like an honor than a material gift. Fast forward to last year. My younger sister, Jenna, 26F, has always been a little competitive with me. She's never been openly malicious, but there's definitely a one-up vibe between us, especially in front of family. She got engaged in December last year and immediately started planning her wedding. It was small, nothing extravagant, but she wanted it to be perfect down to the tiniest detail. Early on, she casually mentioned that she wanted my great-grandmother's necklace to wear on her wedding day. I was shocked. I told her, that's actually supposed to come to me according to family tradition. I expected some back-and-forth negotiation, maybe a compromise, but instead, she insisted that it would be fine for her to borrow it. I told her no. At this point, our parents got involved. Mom tried to reason with me, saying, it's just one day. It's a big day for Jenna. You can let her borrow it and still have it later. Dad said something similar, but added, you don't want to start your adult life with this kind of family drama. I explained that I wasn't trying to ruin the wedding, but that I had deep personal reasons for keeping the necklace. It's not about being selfish. It's about family history, my identity, and honestly, sentimental attachment. Jenna didn't take this well. She accused me of being selfish and petty and claimed that I was trying to sabotage her wedding. Things got tense but remained private until her bridal shower. During the shower, She called a toast to family, love, and forgiveness, and in the middle of it, held up a photo of me from childhood wearing the necklace and said, loudly enough for everyone in the room to hear, and sometimes family traditions are just excuses for someone to be selfish. Let's all appreciate that not everyone is mature enough to understand love and sharing. I was mortified. The room went silent. My mom whispered to me that I should just let it go, but at that point, I felt publicly humiliated. I hadn't done anything wrong. I'd politely and repeatedly explained my stance, and instead of negotiating or accepting it, she decided to shame me in front of family and friends. I didn't know how to respond in that moment other than to leave the shower early. After that, communication between Jenna and me deteriorated. I sent her a long message explaining that I couldn't continue pretending nothing happened and that I felt incredibly hurt by the way she handled everything. She replied that I was overreacting and that weddings are supposed to be about generosity and letting go of grudges. I tried to explain that there's a difference between generosity and being shamed publicly, but she doubled down and accused me of trying to make her wedding about me. As the wedding approached, my parents asked if I would reconsider attending. I said I would not, because I felt disrespected and that my relationship with Jenna had been damaged by her actions. My dad argued that family should come together, that weddings are moments for reconciliation, but I told him that forcing myself into a situation where I'd be treated like the villain would be counterproductive. So I skipped the wedding. Some of the extended family was supportive, some were critical. My aunt called me selfish and said I ruined Jenna's big day. My cousin said she understood why I didn't go and that Jenna had overstepped boundaries. My parents were upset, but didn't force me to attend. My sister, predictably, hasn't spoken to me since the wedding. Now there's some fallout. Family gatherings are awkward, my parents are quietly disappointed, and my sister's friends have apparently been posting about me on social media as the selfish sister who couldn't let her sister have a necklace for one day. It's frustrating because I feel like no one is really considering my perspective. They only see it as me denying her something on her wedding day. I know I could have compromised and maybe let her borrow the necklace under certain conditions, like only wearing it for the ceremony and giving it back immediately, but I honestly don't think that would have made a difference. The public shaming had already occurred, and I wasn't sure if I could handle being in a room with her without it turning into another spectacle. I keep going back and forth in my head. Part of me wonders if I overreacted, if I should have just put aside my pride for a day, but another part of me feels like my boundaries were completely ignored and walking away was the only way to protect myself. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she publicly humiliated me over a family heirloom? Character count, 6,451. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my in-laws stay in our home after they helped with our newborn. I, 28F, recently had my first child, a beautiful baby girl named Ellie. My husband, Dan, 30M, and I had been planning this pregnancy for a while, and we were both ecstatic when we found out I was pregnant. We live about 2 hours away from both of our families, which has always been fine with us because we enjoy our space and privacy. I had a relatively smooth pregnancy, aside from some minor complications that required me to take things slow. When I was about 8 months pregnant, Dan's parents, whom I'll call Mark and Lisa, started dropping hints that they wanted to come stay with us to help out after the baby arrived. At first, I thought it would be a temporary visit, maybe a weekend or so, but they started suggesting a week, then 2, and finally, they casually mentioned that they expected to stay for a month. I told them that while we appreciated their enthusiasm, I really wanted some time to adjust to life with a newborn on our own. I explained that the first few weeks would be challenging, and Dan and I wanted to establish our routine and bond with Ellie without having full-time visitors. Mark got a bit defensive, saying that this was their first grandchild and that we should be grateful for their help. Lisa added that she had experience raising 3 kids and could save me from making rookie mistakes. I tried to be polite but firm, reiterating that I wanted privacy for the first month. Dan agreed with me privately, but seemed hesitant to confront his parents directly, which I understood. Eventually, I told them we would love to see them after the first month, maybe for a weekend, but staying with us was not an option right after the baby came. They left it at that, but I could tell they were annoyed. Fast forward a few weeks, I gave birth to Ellie. It was a long, exhausting labor, but everything went well. Dan stayed by my side the whole time, and we were finally home and trying to figure out this new life with a newborn. I won't lie, it was harder than I expected. Feeding, diaper changes, sleep deprivation, it was a lot, but we were slowly finding our rhythm. A week after we got home, Mark and Lisa called. They said they wanted to come see Ellie the next day. I reminded them that we were still in the first month and that we really needed some private time. They said they would just come for a couple of hours. So reluctantly, I agreed. When they arrived, things quickly went downhill. Mark immediately started taking over, insisting that he change diapers because he had done it 1,000 times and that I should rest. I told him I appreciated the offer, but preferred to do it myself, and he huffed and said I was too controlling. Lisa then started criticizing my feeding schedule, saying Ellie needed more structured feeding times, despite me explaining that our pediatrician had advised feeding on demand. They kept offering unsolicited advice about everything, from swaddling to burping techniques, and every time I tried to set a boundary, they acted offended. Dan tried to mediate, but even he looked overwhelmed. After about 3 hours, I politely suggested that it was time for them to go so we could have some quiet. That's when things got really tense. Mark accused me of being ungrateful and pushing family away. Lisa chimed in that we were being unreasonable and that they had every right to be involved in Ellie's life. Dan was silent for most of this, clearly caught in the middle. After they left, I told Dan that I could not handle them staying with us at all, not even for a week. I felt like they didn't respect our boundaries and that having them in the house would be stressful, not helpful. Dan agreed, but seemed torn because he didn't want to upset his parents. He tried to explain our position to them gently, but they kept texting and calling, saying things like Ellie will forget us and you're being selfish. At this point, I was frustrated. I wanted to enjoy these first few months without feeling criticized or micromanaged. I told Dan we would have to make a hard boundary. His parents were welcome to visit, but only if they stayed in a nearby hotel and followed our rules about visits. Dan was hesitant, but eventually agreed. When I sent the message to Mark and Lisa explaining that they could visit but could not stay at our house, they blew up. Mark said we were splitting the family and turning our backs on them. Lisa accused me of being a terrible mother for not letting them help. Dan, I tried to stay calm, but the conversation ended with them saying they might not visit at all because they didn't feel welcome. Since then, the tension has been unbearable. Dan is upset because his parents are hurt, and I feel like we were just trying to protect our own sanity. I've had friends and other family members say I'm completely in the right, but Mark and Lisa's side of the family has started calling me names and telling me I'm selfish and ungrateful. I feel like we are being responsible by setting boundaries, but the emotional backlash has been intense. I love my in-laws, but I also love my family's privacy and mental health, especially during these first months of parenthood. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my in-laws stay in our home after they came to help with our newborn, even though it hurt their feelings. AITA for refusing to let my brother's girlfriend babysit my kids after she was fired from her previous babysitting job for allegedly being too strict. I, 32F, have 2 kids, ages 5 and 7, and my brother, Mike, 30M, recently started dating someone new, Sarah, 28F. Sarah seems nice enough on the surface. She's polite, well-spoken, and generally friendly. But something happened that's been bothering me, and it caused a huge argument between me and Mike. A little backstory. Sarah used to babysit professionally before she started working a corporate job. A few months ago, she was let go from the last family she worked for. According to Sarah, the parents complained she was too strict with their kids. She told me she set rules, made the kids stick to routines, and didn't let them get away with certain behaviors. She framed it as being responsible and trying to teach kids discipline, and she seemed genuinely upset that she was let go because of it. I don't have any issues with kids needing structure. My own kids have routines, rules, and consequences, but something in the way she described it rubbed me the wrong way. I have friends who are teachers and childcare professionals, and they mentioned that if a babysitter is fired for being too strict, that's a big red flag. Most families hire babysitters because they want someone who's nurturing, flexible, and able to adapt to children's moods. My kids are sensitive, and I'm protective of how people interact with them. So when Mike casually asked if Sarah could babysit my kids for a few hours next month while I had a work event, I hesitated. I told him I appreciated the offer, but I didn't feel comfortable leaving my kids with someone who had a questionable record and who I hadn't observed interacting with children firsthand. Mike got defensive, insisting that Sarah was being unfairly judged and that she's actually great with kids. He argued that I was being biased because I didn't know her yet. I offered a compromise. If Sarah wanted to babysit, she could come over a few times when I was home, so I could see how she handled the kids. I emphasized that I just needed to make sure my kids were safe and happy. Mike said that was insulting and implied I didn't trust Sarah at all. He kept saying that I was being unfair and overly critical, and that I should just give her a chance. I refused to let her babysit unsupervised. I told Mike that my kids' well-being comes first, and I wasn't going to risk it based on Sarah's claims about being too strict. That's when things blew up. Mike called me controlling and paranoid, claiming that I was disrespecting his relationship and making Sarah feel unwelcome in the family. He accused me of overreacting and said that if I couldn't trust him and know what was safe, then maybe I shouldn't be the one deciding things for the family. I tried to explain that this wasn't about him or his relationship. It's about my kids. I offered to have Sarah over for supervised visits, play dates, or even just a couple of hours while I was home, so I could see how she interacted with them. But Mike refused, saying that it was unnecessary and that it made Sarah feel like I was trying to humiliate her. He hasn't spoken to me for the last 2 weeks and keeps sending me passive-aggressive texts about how I'm isolating Sarah from the family. My parents have taken sides, too. My mom agrees with me and says it's my right to choose who looks after my children. My dad, however, thinks I was too harsh and that I should have given Sarah a chance, especially since she's dating Mike. Some of my friends are split as well. Some say I'm being protective and responsible, and others say I should trust Mike and not make his girlfriend feel unwelcome. I can't shake the feeling that my instincts are correct. I don't want to leave my kids with someone who has a track record of not being a good fit for the family she works with, even if she frames it as being disciplined. I also don't want to damage my relationship with Mike, but I feel like I can't compromise on something as important as my kids' safety and emotional comfort. I haven't heard anything from Sarah directly, and I honestly don't want to escalate things by confronting her. I'm stuck in this position where Mike is furious with me, my parents are split, and I feel like the middle ground I try to offer isn't acceptable to anyone. AITA for refusing to let my brother's girlfriend babysit my kids based on her previous termination for being too strict. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house and now being accused of ruining our family. I, 33F, have always been someone who values personal boundaries and my own space. I live in a modest but well-maintained house in a suburban neighborhood. It's not huge or luxurious, but it's cozy and exactly how I like it. My younger sister, Claire, 29F, has always been a bit of a perfectionist, particularly when it comes to appearances and social events. Growing up, she was constantly comparing herself to me, whether it was my grades, my job, or just how organized I am. Usually I can brush it off, but it's important context. Claire recently got engaged to her fiancé, Ethan, 32M, and she immediately began planning an elaborate wedding. She's always wanted a big, Pinterest-level wedding with a garden theme, elaborate floral arrangements, and hundreds of guests. She invited me over one evening and, very casually, asked if she could have the wedding at my house. My house is modest, but she said something along the lines of, "It has a beautiful backyard and lots of potential. It would be perfect for our wedding." I was taken aback. First, my backyard is about half an acre and more suited for small gatherings. Second, I'm not the type to host huge parties. Third, the thought of hundreds of guests trampling my garden, rearranging my furniture, and basically taking over my home was extremely stressful to me. I told her as much politely, saying, "Claire, I'm really flattered that you want to have your wedding here, but I don't think my house is suitable for such a big event. I'm really not comfortable hosting that many people." Claire didn't take this well. She immediately started bringing up my past willingness to help out at family events, reminding me that I had the perfect backyard and implying that saying no was selfish. She said I had always had everything, and now I was refusing to share it even with my own sister. I tried explaining that it's not about money or capability. It's about comfort and boundaries, but she continued to guilt-trip me. The next few days were tense. Our parents got involved, and they seemed to side with Claire at first, saying things like, "It's just for one day," and think about how special it would be for her. I tried to reiterate my feelings, but it felt like they weren't really hearing me. My partner, Alex, 34M, suggested offering alternatives like renting a small event space nearby or helping her find a venue that fit her vision, which I agreed to. I even helped her research 3 potential venues that were both affordable and could accommodate her dream wedding. Despite all this, Claire escalated things. She started messaging mutual friends and family members about how I was being selfish and controlling, and that I was destroying her special day. I got texts from friends I hadn't spoken to in years, asking why I wouldn't let her have the wedding at my house. I felt blindsided. I didn't expect her to make it a public matter. When I refused again, Claire threatened to call my parents and tell them I was kicking her out of the family, which was ridiculous. I felt like I was being painted as the villain just because I set a boundary. Eventually, my parents called me and basically told me that if I didn't let Claire have the wedding at my house, they would consider me difficult and that I should rethink family obligations. I was honestly shocked. I've always been the responsible, reliable sibling who helps organize family events, but suddenly I was being accused of cruelty for saying no to one event. I decided to stand my ground. I sent a message to Claire explaining calmly, "I care about you, and I want your wedding to be beautiful, but my home is not suitable for what you want. I'm happy to help in other ways, but I cannot host the event. I'm sorry if this disappoints you." She didn't respond. A few days later, she posted a public story on social media hinting at family members who put themselves above others and tagged me. That was the last straw for me. I blocked her on most platforms and told my parents that I wasn't going to argue about this anymore. Now, the situation has become worse. Claire is refusing to speak to me, and my parents are clearly frustrated with me. They've made comments like, "You need to compromise, it's not about you, and you're hurting her for no reason." Some extended family members have reached out saying they're disappointed in me for not supporting Claire. Meanwhile, friends and co-workers who know me personally understand why I said no and have been supportive, but the guilt from my own family is really weighing on me. I feel trapped. On one hand, I want to maintain my boundaries and protect my home and mental health. On the other, I feel like I'm being painted as the villain in my family, and that is incredibly stressful. I don't want to completely sever ties with Claire or my parents, but I also don't think hosting a massive wedding in my house is a reasonable expectation. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister have her wedding at my house, even though it's upsetting her and our family. Character count, 6,253 if you want. I can also draft a second, slightly longer version hitting closer to 7,000 characters with more emotional depth and more complex family dynamics to match the viral style of popular AITA posts. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what happened at my own? This is going to be long, so bear with me. I, 32F, have always been extremely close to my younger sister, Lily, 28F. Growing up, we were inseparable, shared friends, clothes, secrets, everything. I thought we would always have each other's backs no matter what. That said, our parents passed away when I was 25 and she was 21, so we've had to rely on each other a lot more than the average siblings. I've always felt protective of her, probably more than I should, but I care about her deeply. About 2 years ago, I got married to my husband, Jake, 34M. It was a small wedding. We didn't want a huge spectacle. I wanted something intimate with close family and a few friends. I asked Lily to be my maid of honor, which she said yes to enthusiastically. I had always imagined she would be my biggest supporter on that day, helping me get through the stress and being there emotionally. However, the planning of my wedding quickly turned into a nightmare, because of her. Lily has always been a bit competitive, especially when it comes to attention within the family. I hadn't realized how bad it had gotten until the weeks leading up to the wedding. She became obsessed with making her own dress and look better than me. She constantly compared herself to me, criticized my choices, and made snide comments about how boring my wedding theme was. She insisted on having an after-party that would overshadow my reception. She even demanded that her dress be a certain color that was against our wedding palette. And when I said no, she pouted and accused me of trying to make everything about me. On the day of the wedding, things got worse. She showed up late and complained about the seating arrangements. During my vows, she loudly whispered comments to the people sitting next to her about how she would have done it differently. At the reception, she monopolized the DJ, changing songs to whatever she wanted and insisting people dance to her requests, ignoring the songs Jake and I had chosen. By the end of the night, I was in tears, and Jake was furious, though he didn't want to start a scene. Several guests later told me that Lily had made the night all about her, which was devastating. I tried talking to her about it afterward, but she brushed it off, saying I was overreacting and that she was just having fun. I was hurt, embarrassed, and honestly a little betrayed. Our relationship became strained, and for months we barely spoke. I tried reaching out, inviting her for coffee, even sending her gifts, but she often ignored me or made passive-aggressive comments online. It seemed like she didn't care about how her actions had affected me. Fast forward to last month, Lily got engaged to her boyfriend, Mark, 30M. I was initially happy for her, hoping that maybe this time things would be different. She announced her wedding for this coming spring, and, of course, she asked me to be her maid of honor. I told her I needed to think about it, given how hurt I was last time. She accused me of being dramatic and selfish, saying that I should just get over it because her wedding is her special day. I tried to set boundaries politely. I told her I could attend the wedding as a guest, but I would not take an official role in the wedding party because I didn't want to risk being treated like a decoration while she took over everything. She reacted explosively. She started messaging me constantly, saying I was destroying our relationship, ruining the family bond, and embarrassing her in front of everyone. She even started tagging me in social media posts, complaining publicly about how my sister refuses to support me and how family is supposed to be there for each other. A few days later, she sent a group message to several family members saying she understood if I didn't attend, but then went on to list all the ways she felt I was being selfish and dramatic. My cousin texted me saying that Lily expected me to show up anyway because you're family, and implied that I was being ridiculous for considering not going. At this point, I was emotionally exhausted. I felt like no matter what I did, I would be portrayed as the villain. I tried talking to Lily one last time, explaining that I could not participate in her wedding in any formal way due to how she had treated me at mine. I told her I still loved her and wanted her happiness, but I needed to protect myself emotionally. She blew up on me, accusing me of holding grudges and saying she didn't need my negativity at her wedding. Now I've decided not to attend her wedding at all. I feel awful, but I can't go through that experience again. Every time I try to justify attending, I remember my own wedding day and how painful it was having her try to steal the spotlight and disregard my feelings. I've spoken to a few close friends, and they agree that I'm protecting myself, but I can't help feeling guilty. Our family is divided. Some think I'm overreacting and that I should forgive and move on, while others say Lily is toxic and I'm justified in staying away. I haven't told her I'm skipping it yet. I'm expecting a huge confrontation when I do. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did at mine? The family drama has me stuck between protecting my mental health and trying to maintain some sense of sibling connection, but honestly, I don't know if that connection is salvageable after all this. The fallout of this decision is looming, and I'm terrified that my choice will be interpreted as a permanent rupture in our relationship. AITA for refusing to let my brother's girlfriend's child attend my wedding? So, this is a complicated situation, and I've been debating whether to even post it here, because I know it's going to make me look like a huge jerk, but here goes. I, 29F, am getting married in 6 months. My fiancé, 30M, and I have been together for 5 years, and we are both super excited, but also stressed out about the guest list because, well, families are complicated. Here's the situation. My younger brother, Ethan, 26M, has been dating a woman named Lila, 27F, for about a year and a half. Lila has a son, Max, who is 6 years old. I've met Max a handful of times, and while he's not a bad kid, I have never really bonded with him, and honestly, I don't feel comfortable around him. I know that might sound harsh, but I've never been great with kids, and large events tend to make me anxious about children running around. When we started planning the wedding, we agreed early on with my fiancé that we would have a small wedding, around 80 people, with just immediate family and close friends. Because of this, we made it clear that we were not having children at the wedding. We have several nieces and nephews who we are really close with, and for them, we were going to make an exception, but we specifically stated that this did not include friends or extended family's children. Fast forward to about a month ago, Ethan and Lila approached me about Max attending the wedding. Ethan tried to frame it as he's just a kid, and that it would mean a lot to Lila if Max could be there. I explained politely that we were having a small, adult-only wedding, and that it wouldn't be possible. Ethan seemed to take it well at first, but then he sent me a long text about how this was really unfair to Lila and Max, and that he felt like I was prioritizing my comfort over my family. I tried to respond gently, emphasizing that it wasn't personal, and that I wanted them both to come, but the wedding would not include children outside of our closest nieces and nephews. I even suggested that we could have a small family day or a brunch where Max could be present, so he wouldn't be completely left out. Ethan's response was to basically guilt me, saying that this would damage our relationship and that Lila was upset. I didn't budge, and since then, things have been tense. My parents are split on the issue. My mom says I'm being too rigid and should make a small exception for Max, while my dad supports my boundary, saying it's our wedding and we get to decide who comes. Ethan has been giving me the silent treatment for a couple of weeks now, and Lila unfollowed me on social media, which honestly hurt more than I expected. A few days ago, Ethan sent me a group text to the family chat, which included our parents and other siblings, basically calling me selfish and unreasonable. He said that I was putting my anxiety and dislike of kids over family, and that Max deserved to be part of the family events, even if it was just for a few hours. This has caused an uproar, and now my other siblings are split, with one defending me and the other leaning towards Ethan and Lila. I really don't want to let Max attend the wedding. I worry that he would be bored, that I'd feel stressed trying to manage him during the reception, and that it would take away from the environment we want to create. On the other hand, I feel guilty because I know Lila will be disappointed, and I don't want to damage my relationship with Ethan. Some people have suggested that I offer to pay for a babysitter for Max at the venue, but honestly, I feel like that doesn't solve the tension. I want to enjoy my wedding without worrying about discipline, accidents, or Max's feelings being hurt by the formality of the event. I've tried to communicate respectfully and explain my reasoning multiple times, but the family drama is escalating. Everyone keeps telling me that weddings are about family and that excluding Max is cold, but I keep coming back to the fact that it's my wedding and we made a choice to keep it adult only for a reason. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother's girlfriend's child attend my wedding? AITA for refusing to let my brother's partner stay in my house after he moved in, even though she claims I'm overreacting? I, 32M, live in a 3-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized city. I've always been pretty particular about my space. I'm a bit of an introvert, I like quiet, and I work from home as a software developer, so my environment is really important to me. My younger brother, Jake, 28M, recently broke up with his girlfriend of 5 years and moved across the country to live closer to me. We've always had a good relationship, and I was happy to help him get settled, especially since he was starting a new job and didn't have a permanent place yet. When he first arrived, he stayed with me for a couple of weeks. That went fine. We ate together, played video games, and generally caught up. Things started to get complicated when he started dating someone new, Elena, 27F. I met her a few times, and honestly, I didn't think much of her at first. She seemed nice enough, but she's very high maintenance and very controlling in subtle ways. The first big problem came when Jake told me she wanted to stay with us just for a night or two, because she was visiting from out of town. I agreed, thinking it was temporary. But then, she started leaving her things in the guest room, saying she didn't want to unpack just for a short stay. I told Jake that wasn't fair to me since she wasn't paying rent and my space is limited. He brushed it off, saying, "Come on, it's just a few things." A few days later, she moved in officially, without asking me directly. She just started acting as if it was understood that she would be staying for the foreseeable future. I work from home, and her presence changed the entire dynamic. She wanted the TV on all day, she'd invite friends over, and she started helping with chores in a way that really annoyed me, like moving my personal belongings around or cleaning in ways I didn't want. I tried to speak to Jake about it, but he said I was overreacting and that it was just for a little while. Things escalated when Elena started hinting at wanting to personalize my apartment. She suggested painting walls, rearranging furniture, and even brought over a bunch of candles and diffusers, saying, "It'll make the place cozier for all of us." I told her politely that I wasn't comfortable with that, and she said I was being stubborn and unwelcoming. The breaking point came last week. I had a major project due at work, and I needed absolute quiet for several days. I asked Elena if she could stay elsewhere for a short time, and she became visibly upset. Jake immediately jumped in, saying I was being unreasonable and controlling, and that I had no right to dictate who he can be with. Elena then accused me of hating her and said she felt unwelcome. I explained calmly that it wasn't personal, that I liked her, but this was my home and workspace, and I needed boundaries. Jake got angry and left to go stay at a hotel for a few days with her. During that time, Elena posted a long story on social media implying that I was a toxic brother who tried to push her out of our family home. Several mutual friends reached out to me asking what was happening. I tried to explain my side, but it felt like nobody was really listening. When Jake returned, he apologized to me for leaving abruptly, but insisted that I needed to accept Elena as part of the household. I told him no, that my apartment is not communal and that she cannot live here without contributing financially and respecting my rules. He got defensive, saying I was trying to control his life and ruin his relationship. Since then, family gatherings have become tense. My parents called me, saying I need to loosen up and be more welcoming, which I found frustrating because I never asked them to choose sides. I simply want my home to remain my home. I feel like my boundaries are being dismissed because it inconveniences Jake and Elena. I've considered letting her stay, but every scenario I imagine ends with me feeling like my personal life is being intruded on. I've tried compromise, asking her to pay rent, suggesting short visits, but she always frames it as me being hostile. My friends tell me I'm justified, but I'm worried that my entire family thinks I'm the villain. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother's partner stay in my apartment and insisting that she respect my space and boundaries. AITA for refusing to let my sister involve my son in a controversial school project. So I, 35F, have a 9-year-old son, Max. I've always been very protective of him, mostly because he's very sensitive and easily affected by what's going on around him. My sister, Lily, 32F, has always been a bit more free-spirited, for lack of a better word. She's a high school teacher and very passionate about her beliefs, some of which can be polarizing, especially with kids. Normally, I love that she's involved in education and creative projects, but this time it crossed a line. Lily reached out to me a few weeks ago and said her students were doing a big civic engagement project for school. The idea was that kids would pick a social issue, research it, and then present it in a creative format like a video, skit, or art installation. Lily said she wanted to do a pilot run with a few outside kids before rolling out to her class, and wanted Max to be one of them because he's so smart and creative. At first, I thought it sounded harmless, maybe even fun for him. But when she explained the project in more detail, I got uncomfortable. Essentially, the kids were supposed to pick a current social justice issue and create a persuasive piece advocating for a particular stance. She was very upfront that the kids were encouraged to be passionate and take a side, and that some topics might be controversial. She even suggested some issues like climate change activism, immigration, LGBTQ+ rights, and police reform. She told me it would be fine and educational, but I didn't feel okay with it. Max is in 4th grade and hasn't really learned to navigate complex political or moral debates yet. I didn't want him potentially pressured to take a stance on something he doesn't fully understand. I told Lily I appreciated her thinking of Max, but that I didn't think he was ready to participate. I offered to let him do a creative, neutral project at home instead, maybe a fun science experiment or a history presentation that wouldn't involve divisive topics. Lily got upset. She said I was being overprotective and that children should learn to engage with real-world issues from a young age. She accused me of sheltering him and said that I was robbing him of a unique learning experience. I tried to explain that there's a difference between learning about issues and being asked to actively advocate for one side in a school project at his age. She dismissed my concerns and said I was overreacting. Things got tense when she implied that I was a helicopter parent and that I don't trust her judgment. She also made a comment about how I'm afraid of him learning the world isn't all rainbows and puppies, which really stung. The next day, I saw that Lily had posted a flyer about the pilot project on social media, and she tagged Max in it. I hadn't agreed to this, and I felt like she was publicly putting pressure on him. I messaged her, asking her to take him off the flyer, explaining again that I wasn't comfortable with him participating. She refused, saying he had already agreed verbally when I knew he hadn't. Max came home from school that afternoon and was confused because some of his friends had seen the post and asked him about it. He didn't want to participate, and he looked genuinely upset. I ended up calling Lily and telling her that she needed to respect my boundaries as Max's parent. I said that if she couldn't do that, then he would not be participating and she would need to remove him from the flyer immediately. She yelled at me, saying I was being controlling and that Max would miss out on an important learning opportunity because of my fear of controversy. I held my ground, and eventually, she removed his name, though she was still visibly angry. After this, Lily started avoiding me. My mom, who's close with both of us, tried to mediate. She said Lily felt hurt and that I was denying a chance for family bonding through education. I get that she's disappointed, but I also feel like I was protecting Max, who is my responsibility. Since then, I've heard from mutual friends that Lily has been telling people that I'm unreasonable and that I don't allow Max to experience the real world, which has made family gatherings awkward. I don't feel guilty because I think my concerns were valid, and I think it's important for kids to be developmentally ready for these types of discussions. At the same time, I'm aware that from Lily's perspective, I may have seemed dismissive of her efforts and ideas, and that's why she's upset. My mom keeps telling me to try to see her side, and maybe I overreacted, but honestly, I feel like I made the right call for my child. AITA for refusing to let my sister involve my son in a controversial school project. AITA for confronting my sister about her behavior at my wedding and causing a family feud. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister, Emma, 31F. Growing up, we were close but very competitive. Emma is the older sibling and has always had a tendency to take the spotlight, whether intentionally or not. Over the years, I learned to accept it and mostly tried to avoid conflict, though I always felt she overshadowed me in important moments. Fast forward to last year, I got engaged to my fiancé, Tom, 30M. I knew I wanted a small, intimate wedding and had been planning it for over a year. I specifically wanted it to be around 70 guests, mostly close family and friends. I had a clear vision of the ceremony and reception, including colors, music, and the overall vibe, which was more understated and personal rather than extravagant. Emma, however, started giving me input early on, which I mostly ignored because I felt confident in my choices. She frequently made offhand comments about my dress, my guest list, even suggesting that I should do something bigger or invite more people because she thought small weddings were boring. I tried to brush it off, but it kept getting under my skin. 2 months before the wedding, Emma started escalating. She bought herself a very expensive outfit for the day, far more glamorous than what I had envisioned for anyone in my family. I asked her politely if she could tone it down a little, or at least stick to the dress code I had outlined, and she acted offended, saying I was trying to control her fun. At this point, I was frustrated but tried to let it go, thinking she might just calm down closer to the date. The week of the wedding, she sent me a long text about how she was planning a surprise for me and that I should trust her completely. I was uneasy, but didn't respond much, assuming it was a minor gesture. On the wedding day, everything started beautifully. The ceremony was small and emotional, exactly how I wanted. The problem started at the reception. Emma had arranged a large, live music band that she invited without consulting me. The band took over the main stage and played loud, high-energy songs that completely clashed with the soft, acoustic atmosphere I had planned. Guests were confused, and I felt blindsided. When I asked Emma why she had done that, she said she thought it would make the night more memorable. I told her very calmly that it was not what I wanted and that she had gone over my boundaries, but she brushed me off, saying I was being too controlling. Later, during dinner, she made a big scene. She loudly criticized my seating arrangements, claimed I didn't make enough effort to include distant relatives, and told several guests that the wedding felt boring compared to hers and other family weddings she had attended. I finally lost my temper and told her that this day was about me and Tom, not her, and that she had repeatedly ignored my wishes. I also mentioned that if she didn't respect my boundaries, she would have to leave. She got extremely angry, accused me of humiliating her in front of everyone, and stormed out of the reception. Several family members followed her outside to mediate, but by then, the damage was done. The wedding continued, but the atmosphere was tense. Some relatives sided with me, saying Emma had clearly overstepped, while others thought I was being too harsh. The day ended without further incidents, but the fallout has been enormous. Since then, my parents have been upset with me, claiming I should have been more diplomatic and that I embarrassed Emma. My friends and Tom think I handled the situation appropriately, given the repeated boundary violations. Emma refuses to speak to me and has been posting passive-aggressive messages on social media, implying that I ruined her life and humiliated her in front of the family. Other relatives have started picking sides, and family gatherings have become uncomfortable. I feel like I was clear about my expectations and that Emma deliberately chose to ignore them. I also feel like this was my wedding, and I had every right to enforce boundaries. On the other hand, I can see why some people think I overreacted in the moment, but honestly, I felt backed into a corner. So, AITA for confronting Emma at my own wedding and causing a family feud, or was I justified in standing up for myself and my fiancé? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.